Today is September 23rd, 2024, and welcome to the 407th episode of the Video Games podcast. Here in the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I am the one-man host of this show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10, while also offering full accessibility information on every review we publish. Hello! Thank you for joining me today. I'm glad you're here. Really, I am. As usual, I'm going to kick things off with housekeeping, where I discuss tidbits, news items, industry happenings, and basically anything randomly game adjacent that's caught my eye in the last 7 days. All right, here we go. I'm going to talk about some housekeeping. Before I do, just a quick heads up. In true Video Games fashion, I ate really spicy food before doing this podcast. I do it every time. I don't mean to do it, but I guess for some reason when I'm on a recording schedule, something down deep craves some spicy, and it just wreaks havoc on like my nose. My nose is like super stuffy right now, and I'm sure I'll be having like a little spicy cough later or something like that. So anyway, I apologize. I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum. You'd think after doing like 400 odd episodes, I would know better, but boy, I sure don't. So thank you to the corner taco truck for spicy burrito, and let's get on with the show. All right, first up is just a rumor. I saw it floating around Twitter from a couple different people. Apparently, Sony is thinking about the PS6. Not a lot of details, obviously, since they just released some information on the PS5 Pro. They're going to be pimping that for a while. Whatever. I don't think that's a good machine. I think that was kind of a dumb way to go. We're not going to talk about it today. But what I did hear was that developers will be seeing the content, or I guess the specs, whatever, the chips. Going to open that up and see the chips inside. But anyway, it's not supposed to be slated until 2028. So we've got a couple more years to go. But the good thing about this is people were saying that Sony has really prioritized being backwards compatible, which, I mean, dude, at this point in time, any developer or publisher, or I guess a publisher, no, I mean, like, console maker, whatever, if you're not thinking about backwards compatibility, you're out, dude. Like, who the hell wants to buy a bunch of games for a system and then not have those systems work on the very next system? Especially now that we are in such high tech, a time period, right? Where like, we can emulate stuff. We can go backwards. We can, digitize. We got stuff on the download. I mean, whatever. There's really no excuse for not thinking about future-proofing stuff. And I think that console makers would be really wise to start thinking about, honoring their fans, honoring those purchases, honoring the dollars that they've spent, and not throwing that away by saying, oh, well, the new chips are too high-tech, or we can't go back because we have a different codec or something like that. Fuck it, dude. Make it a priority from the get-go, or just fucking don't, So I'm glad to hear that the rumor, anyway, is that Sony is really strongly making sure that backwards compatibility is a priority, which is great, because then you can play all the way back to PS1, right? Like, you can play PS1 stuff on PS5 now. Of course, you've got some 2 and 3, and then some 4 as well. Once 5 goes the way of the dodo, I mean, there's a lot of games on 5 that I'm sure people would still want to play, myself included. So yes, absolutely, backwards compatibility, here, forthwith. Yes, do that, please, Sony. Oh my goodness, my nose is so stuffy. I'm so sorry, folks. Okay, moving on. Speaking of consoles, I saw another rumor. I don't know if it's a rumor, or I guess it was just like a down low key, don't share this, except I'm going to tweet it to everybody announcement. I've heard that last week in September, a bunch of developers for the Switch got flown out to a secret location and were shown specs and hardware for the next Switch 2, I guess, what they're going to call. Who knows what they're going to call it? So apparently that's in the works, which is great. I love my Switch. Had a lot of fun with it. I play it almost every day. And although I do love the beast, it is kind of showing its age. So I think thinking about a Switch 2 is right on time for Nintendo, perhaps even a year too late. But I'm glad they're going there now, and apparently it's real. It's happening, and from what I can tell, people were out there. Probably no final form factor, probably nothing really to look at other than the specs and a dev kit or something. But that's the word. So I guess the next generation consoles are coming. Didn't hear anything about Xbox, but you never know with those guys. Next up, Vampire Therapist, the PC visual novel starring a Western-themed vampire who wants to better himself and become a therapist. Very cute, kind of horny, nice art. Talked about it a couple episodes ago. It is definitely a favorite of mine this year. I had to put it on pause just for a moment because I had a lot of other review responsibilities. But it is absolutely going to be a game that I finish this year. And honestly, it's on the short list for one of my 10 best of 2024. So don't ignore Vampire Therapist. Don't sleep on it. But they are announcing there is a new update / DLC called The Blood of Troy. It talks about the story of the founding of Rome through the eyes of an immortal vampire. That sounds great. That sounds great to me. The writing was on point in the core campaign, and I really do like the writing and the voice acting and stuff. 2 more updates are coming, they say. The next one is called Spanish Nights. The third one is called Fathoms Below. The former is about pre-Renaissance Spain, and Psychoanalysis is for Fathoms Below. So both of those are going to be released this year, which is a pretty tight release schedule for a game that just came out. So they must have been thinking about this stuff ahead of time and having it ready to go, which is great. I mean, honestly, I don't think there's even any cost for these. I believe they're free updates, if my information is correct. But that's a great strategy, right? Like, you put out a good game, you get people talking about it, and then you release content at a pretty steady pace, at least up until award season, to keep this game on the tips of everybody's tongue, right? That's smart. That's really smart. And also, it's a really good fucking game. So check out Vampire Therapist. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine I won't be talking about it in December. I feel like I'm probably going to be talking about it. So give it a shot. Give it a shot. I think it's worth a look. In other news, let's see. There's a new video up on YouTube that is featuring John Romero and Jordan Mechner? The guy who did Karateka, Prince of Persia, The Last Express, that guy. They are talking about the importance of historical preservation in the video game industry, something that is near and dear to my heart, although not as near to my heart as it is to the heart of Kelsey Lewin, friend, vague neighbor. We're both in the same basic area, although we do not live next to each other. I've met Kelsey many times. She is fantastic. She's an amazing game historian. She also runs the merch store that's always at PAX. It's called Pink Gorilla, or is it Pink Godzilla? Oh man, that's embarrassing. I don't remember which one. It's Pink Animal, and it's a kaiju. I feel like it's Pink Gorilla, but Kels, I'm sorry if I'm fucking that up. I'm super apologizing. I can see the little symbol in my head, and I just cannot remember what it is. Anyway, to make a long story even longer, the point of why I even brought any of this up is that there is a video up on YouTube featuring Jordan Mechner, John Romero. They are having a conversation with Kelsey Lewin, who I just mangled the name of her store, and also former Game Informer journalist Ben Hansen. And they're having a great discussion about game history, game preservation stuff. It's really cool stuff. Check it out. I have the link, but I'm not going to read the whole link out to you. I guess just, go to YouTube and just check out Romero, Mechner, Lewin, game historian, chat, something like that, whatever. Okay. Not necessarily game related, but I think kind of interesting. On September 17th, 1984, which at the time that I was going to record this podcast was, I think, 3 days after. But basically, we're right on the button of when Transformers debuted in the United States. September 17th, 1984. That was a momentous day. I've been a lifelong Transformers fan ever since. Loads of Transformers I am surrounded by right now. I've seen all the, almost all the cartoons. The shirts, contemplated a tattoo, did not get it, and I'm happy with that, but maybe someday, who knows. But yeah, definitely a hardcore Transformers fan. One of the seminal properties of the 80s. And it's funny because in the 80s, pretty close to when Transformers debuted, we also got Gem, we also got He-Man, we also got She-Ra a couple years later, we got G.I. Joe, etc., etc. So we're pretty close to the 40th anniversary of basically every major cartoon property from the 80s, which is pretty cool. And as a child of the 80s, speaking with you right here, right now, I have a great love for all of these things. And it's cool and that we're circling back around and remembering these things. A lot of them are still available. And I'm also very fortunate to still be here, to enjoy these things. It is like a dream come true for me, the toy addict that I am. Anyway, so happy 40th to Transformers. Moving on. There is a Lies of P merch store now in existence. If you remember, we talked about Lies of P a while ago. the Korean-made Souls-like, which is kind of a riff off of the story of Pinocchio, where instead of a wooden boy, you had kind of an android, I guess, with a metal arm, although lying did take a role in that story. Overall, probably one of my very most favorite non-Souls games, or I guess it would be more appropriate to say non-FromSoft Souls-like games. Liza P leaned into the formula, and they seem to be one of the very few developers who really get it. That was a fun-ass game, although, if I'm being perfectly honest, it was a little bit too hard in spots. I did finish it, completed it all the way, got the true ending, and but I worked for it. I worked for it, and that last battle, whoo, boy, that was a thing. That was a thing. I don't know that it was quite as difficult as the true ending of Hollow Knight, because that can just get fucked sideways. That was a fucked up boss battle. That was one of the most balls hard things I think I've ever done. But Liza P's final boss, no slouch either, let me tell you, friend. Anyway, that's beside the point, because if you are like me, you're probably a fan of Liza P, and there is now a new merch shop where you can go and get cool t-shirts. There's also soundtracks. There is I think a bundle which includes a Liza P and a single, I think, and it comes with like a really cool vinyl style. I think there's some colors that you can choose that kind of call back to the records that you found in the actual game. There's also t-shirts, 2 hoodies, a cap. They've all got the Liza P logo, etc., etc. Full disclosure, I did get a free t-shirt, just so I want to be upfront with that. That's all it takes to buy me on this podcast is a good not a cheap one, but a good t-shirt. If anybody wants to send me a really cool t-shirt, I will absolutely read your news announcement on this show. You bet, absolutely. Doesn't hurt that I love Liza P. That's legit. But yeah, they did give me a shirt, which I'm not wearing right now, but I did get it. Really good quality cloth. The printing was good ink. It's got the cool arm, the fake metal arm that P had. I think there's actually a name for it, the Legion arm. That's it. But it's a badass shirt, and I got it for free, so thank you very much. And also, hopefully, you guys probably will not get a free shirt, but you can buy one and get the soundtrack, etc., etc. Go to gear.lizap.com and check out all the fucking cool stuff over there if you are a person who enjoyed your time in the city of Krot. I know I did, mostly. Next up, Blasphemous 2. I think one of the most intriguing Souls-like / Metroidvanias to come out in a while. The first Blasphemous, wow, blew my fucking face off. But Blasphemous 2, also a really quality game. I unfortunately had to put it aside for review reasons, but I will come back to it, and I'm glad that I waited, because there is now an update coming out. There's a free and a paid part to it. It's called the Mea Culpa update. So the free update includes new zones, expanded zones with new challenges to explore and conquer, new connecting zones, which mean quicker traversal between zones which are already explored. There's a new challenge called the Labyrinth of Tides, and I believe there is a New Game Plus thing going on, adjustable difficulty. You can change the difficulty, I guess, with the spikes and the falls and stuff like that. New enemies and a bunch of other upgrades, quality of life improvements, and so forth and so on. That's the free stuff. The paid stuff includes 2 brand new zones. It says 2 massive new zones to endure their harsh winds and ascend their towering heights. That's scary because in the first Blasphemous, I think the tower zone was probably the part I struggled with the most. So hopefully it's not too much like that, but I bet it's probably pretty good. New bosses, new quests, altogether new quests. Piece together a sword and experience the power of Mea Culpa, which is an artifact. New characters, 4 new compatriots, new alternative ending, which will be revealed after you face some of Blasphemous 2's fiercest challenges, etc., etc. So, Blasphemous 2 getting some major love. You're getting some free love. You're getting some paid love. It's up to you how much you love it. I love it a lot, and I will definitely pay for the expanded stuff once I'm ready to come back to it. I'm not playing it right now, but once I wrap up a couple things, I will need a new nighttime Switch game, and I do want to come back to this one. I really dug it a lot. Okay, so that's all of the housekeeping stuff that I've got there, but before we move on to the main portion of the show, good friend, superfan Ron had a question for me, and he sent it in the So Videogames Discord. So we'll get to that in a second if you're curious about the Discord. But Ron is into Discord, as all the cool people are, and he did send me a question. He said, if you're still looking for questions, Brad, and yes, I am. I'm always looking for questions. I will take any questions on any subject whatsoever, anytime. Hit me with them, for real. Ron says, Brad, I would love to hear your take on how objective or subjective video game reviews should typically be. I think you have a lot of experience on it, and I'm sure you've got a good point on either side. Okay, well, I'm going to just answer this off the top of my head here. I was going to write out a longer thing, but it's been kind of a crazy week. But, honestly, I think Ron is kind of correct. I've been in the reviews game, just to give you some background in case you don't know. I've been at GameCritics.com for 24 years. It'll be 25 years in 2025. I joined in the year 2000, so it's really easy to remember. So 2025 will mark my 25th anniversary at GameCritics.com. I've been editor-in-chief of GameCritics.com for, I believe, 24 of those soon-to-be 25 years. I was there for about a year, learning the craft, writing reviews, being kind of a staffer, if you will. And then I took over as editor, and have been editor ever since. So at the site, 25 years, editor for 24 years. I bet that's probably longer than some people listening to this podcast have even been alive. So I've been around. And I guess just the easy answer to this is every single video game review is subjective. I think it was Stephanie Sterling who at one point tried to take a stab at doing a completely objective review. You might want to Google it and see. It was kind of funny. It was totally stupid, but I mean stupid on purpose. It was like, this is a game. It has graphics. The controller worked. It turned on when I turned it on. It was just like that kind of stuff. That's being completely subjective, objective, factual. I bought it for $60 and I held it in my hand. It was a disc, that kind of stuff. Literally everything else is subjective. What you think of it, whether you think it's hard or easy, whether you think it looks good or it looks bad, whether you think, even what genre you think it's in. I mean, basically any thoughts you have about it, almost all of them are going to be subjective. And it really depends on who you are, where you're from, how much you know, how much experience you have, what your general leaning on life is. I mean, it's that sort of a thing. So whenever I get a review at Game Critics, we don't go for objective, because it's bullshit. There's no such thing as an objective review, no matter how much some people want to kick and scream about it. So we don't even fight it. That's not even a thing that we talk about. But what I do talk about is I don't want a laundry list of features. I don't want to just a point by point breakdown of what the game has. That's just a list of contents or something. When I think of a review, my opinion definitely leans into, if we're going to just use these terms real quickly, just for the sake of argument, leans far more into the subjective. I want to know what the writer felt about it. I want to know how the game, how it struck them, what it made them think, what it made them feel, what was fresh about it, what was interesting about it. Were there any cool moments? When they walk away from the game, what stays with them, if anything? That's really what I want to know. I want to know, as someone who may not have played a game, and if I come to Game Critics and I read a review, I want to be able to read any review on the site. And it doesn't require that I already have foreknowledge of the game. I want every review to be approachable. And I want anybody to walk off the street and say, I'm curious about game X. And, oh, hey, Game Critics has a review of game X. Let's see what they had to say. And I want that review to be approachable and clear and understandable to literally anyone who's able to read the English language. I want them to understand what the writer's trying to say, how they felt about it, the points they're trying to make. We try not to have too much inside baseball. We try not to have reviews that rely on referencing other games, so that, if you don't have that encyclopedic knowledge, you don't know what the writer's talking about. I want to talk about things that are concepts, that are feelings, that are vibes, and not just about this one's got, 3 more P's than the last game, or the graphics are this way, or whatever. None of that stuff really matters. Yeah, if it's beautiful, if it makes you feel something, sure. But I don't care about, the ray tracing on this thing, or the DLSS, or whatever the fuck, all that stuff. So I guess in that sense, for me personally, as editor-in-chief of GameCritics.com, and to use the terms objective/subjective, even though I don't really believe in them, I definitely want subjective. I want someone's thoughts, feelings, vibes, impressions, how the game made them feel. That's the most important thing to me. Not that it had X features, or it had, some kind of new technological leap forward or something. I mean, mention it. I'm not against it, but like that's not what I want. And if somebody comes to Game Critics and they're like, "Oh, you guys are so biased. All I want to know is what features it has and what modes it has, and that's all blah 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 blah." That'd be cool. I mean, there's other places that do that, but in my opinion, that's not really what a review is. That's not what I do. It's not what I like. It's not what I like to read. So Ron, hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that resonated with you a little bit. And again, just to really circle back on this and just really emphasize it hard, every review you read, except for that one written by Stephanie Sterling, is subjective. And it's impossible not to be, because just as human beings, that's how we exist in the universe. And for me, it's all about like, what did you feel? What did you think? What did you like about it? That's what I want to know, not the tech specs. So, all right, Ron, there you go. And if anybody else has questions out there, you can send them in to me. I guarantee I will read them off. It can be about literally anything. I've answered questions about food. I've answered questions about parenting in the past. We've talked about sex. We've talked about relationships. We've talked about anything under the sun. Nothing is out of bounds. Nothing's off limits. I'm happy to talk about lots of stuff. So send me questions, games if you like, even games. That's kind of weird, but go ahead. All right, so there you go. Questions are always welcome. Now, before I get to the main portion of the show, just a quick reminder, you can help support this very podcast when you're listening to literally right now in real time by going to patreon.com/the So Videogames podcast. Every little bit helps with the cost of hosting and such. And of course, a huge thanks to all of our Patreon supporters who are already putting their money where those ears is. Also, getting back to the Discord thing, which I've mentioned like 19 times already, we have a So Videogames Discord. Any listener is welcome to join free of charge, and we have had a number of new people join in the last week or so. What's up, new people? I see you joining, and I would love it if you would just say hey or ask a question or just chit chat, shoot the breeze, whatever. We want it to be a comfortable social place for everybody to hang out. And if you don't know anybody, that's totally fine. You'll get to know people. You'll talk to me. You know me. I'll talk to you, and then we'll just all become friends. It'll be a nice little family situation. So if you're new, and I know you're new. I saw you join myself. If you're in the Discord, say hey, say what's up. Just don't be a stranger, and let's all be friends. And you who have not joined the Discord yet, you can join free of charge too. Just send me a message if you want to continue the conversation after the show. Hit me up on email, etc., etc. I'll send you all the details. You can get those details at the end of the show here. All right, moving on to the official main beefy chewy center part of the show here on episode 407. Let's start off with circlebacks, which I like to do, which is where I bring back a game I've talked about in greater detail in the past. I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty because we already did, like I just said, covered it in the past. But I do want to circle back to add more information, tell you if it's good or bad, tell you where I'm at with it, just to kind of touch on it to let you know that it's still in my world right now. First up, God, it feels like a million years, but I finished Caravan SandWitch. If you had asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I finished that like 6 months ago. No, it must have been last week, but it feels like such a long time since I finished it. That game was fucking magnificent. Big shout out to John over at Gaming the Wild for bringing it to my attention. Shout out to all the people in John's Gaming the Wild Discord, which is an amazing place to be. You can join for $1 a month. Go join it right now. Everybody was there, was just like upping it so hard, and it really got me hyped for it. And I listened to John's preview on his show, Gaming the Wild, and I'm like, man, that sounds like a great game. And yeah, it was dead on. Dead on. I loved every minute of Caravan SandWitch. Okay, there was like 3 minutes I didn't love of it, but like overall, loved the whole thing. Great idea, wonderful new take on the open world Metroidvania. It just was wonderful. I'm going to do a full written review, which I don't usually do, but I've been kind of in the zone lately, and I know that publishers and developers really appreciate when I do, and I do want to give this game a boost. I think it needs more visibility. Caravan SandWitch, despite having the silliest name I think I've seen all year, is just fucking phenomenal. Has nothing really to do with caravans or sandwiches, which is, again, why did you guys name it that? But basically, you're in a small open world doing Metroidvania type stuff. Zero combat, zero penalties. It's all kind of cozy, but there's a cool story. There's talk about like post-consumerism, post-industrialism a little bit, like reclaiming community. It's just a wonderful fucking experience. I loved every minute of it. So big thumbs up to Caravan SandWitch. Definitely one of the must-plays for me this year. Hopefully for you too. And I guarantee that one is going to be in my top 10 of the indie. I'm spoiling my top 10 already. Like you already know, like half my top 10s already. But Caravan SandWitch guaranteed going to be on there. I don't know what spot it's going to take, but it's on there for sure. Also, circling back to Punch Club 2. Playing it on the Switch, comes from Lazy Bear Games. I'm a big fan of Lazy Bear, and I think low-key they're one of the best 2D pixel-based developers going right now. They're so quirky and so idiosyncratic and so clever. I just really love all of their games. Really, really a lot. Speaking of which, they got a new one coming up soon. Can't talk about it, but it's coming up soon. We'll talk about that later. But Punch Club 2, talked about it a while ago, put it down because of review responsibilities, and then I had some time, picked it back up. And there was a DLC that released a little while ago. I think it was called Iron Fist or something like that, and it was about adding a new robot tournament to the game, which is pretty cool. But actually, it was fun just to come back to Punch Club 2. If you don't know, in short, it's basically like a super heavy grinding, gaining experience and gaining stats game where you play a boxer in like a cyberpunk, Blade Runner-ish sort of weird parody world where there's all sorts of references to movies and pop culture and stuff, but it's all really tastefully done and cleverly done. And you need to just work your way up the ranks from being a schmuck to being like the top dog. It's a grind. It's slow, but man, it's so fucking addicting. I just really like the seeing the numbers go up and fighting the fights and making my money and kind of going back, and just you get into like a little groove of doing this stuff over and over while slowly advancing. It's just a great time. I really love it a lot. And I will say that I did hit a stopping point though. You go up the boxing ranks and you fight different characters, and most of them are inspired by other characters. There's like a guy that looks like what is that guy from there's a guy that everybody likes from the Yakuza series. He's the bad guy. He's got the eye patch, whatever that guy's name is. Like there's a guy that looks like that. There's a guy that looks like he's from Breaking Bad, I think. There's a guy that looks like he's from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or so whatever. So there's all these guys, and there's a guy that looks like Rorschach from Watchmen, and he was just kicking my fucking ass for so long. It's like I would just like fight a guy, rise up the ranks, fight a guy, rise up the ranks, no problem. A little bit of struggle here and there, but grinding, you get your stats up, do some workouts or whatever. Your boxer gets in better shape. You move on. It's really good stuff. But man, Rorschach was just like wiping the fucking floor with me, and I got really frustrated, and it sucked because Rorschach was not only in the boxing league that I was trying to advance in, he was also in one of the side quests I was trying to advance, and so I couldn't beat him in either aspect. I couldn't advance the side quest. It was the only side quest I had left. I could not advance in the boxing tournament because he was right above me, and I'm like, oh Jesus, this is miserable. So I was just grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding, and honestly, it took too long, and that was kind of a bummer. Probably the worst part of the entire game so far, and I'm probably like 30 hours deep, right? But I looked around online. There was really no trick to it. It was just like, equip the right skills and just get good, and that's all it was to it. But finally, I found the secret combination. I couldn't even tell you what it was. It was just like a certain mix of punches and kicks, and I had the right stats and whatever, and I took him down, and I was like, oh my God, wow, what a fucking relief. I was just so fucking just like, yes, finally. It was like one of those fights where it's like, it's not even like you're happy that you beat it. You're just like, thank God that's over. Like you're just done with it and moving on, right? So finally got past Rorschach, which was like, man, it had me stuck for so long. Now I'm back, and it's ironic because I'm just like cleaning up afterwards. I'm like knocking out opponent after opponent, rising up the ranks, finishing the side quest. So it's going along swimmingly now. Punch Club 2 is really great. I think it's a great fit for the Switch. It's a perfect Switch game. Play a little bit before you go to bed. You're totally fine. And it's clever. The pixel art is fucking fantastic. Like, they're pixel geniuses over there at Lazy Bear. Some of those animations, I'm just like, dude, how did you fucking do that? That was magic. So, great animations, really funny story, really addictive. I mean, grindy, but grindy addictive gameplay. Punch Club 2 is really good stuff. Okay, that is all I have for Circlebacks. Moving on to brand new games this week, and I've got, I think, let's count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. First up is a wild one. This is a solo developer games called Would You Call Him a Bad Man? It's by Ian Hinden. Ian sent me an email and said he would like me to cover this game. I was kind of intrigued. I mean, obviously I was intrigued because I'm talking about it now. There's a lot of emails I am not intrigued by, but his I was intrigued by. So I played the game today, and this is just a really interesting, bizarre, unconventional one. I feel like... Okay, let me just read what Ian says, and then I'll tell you how I feel about it. He says, this is from him. He says, the game title is Would You Call Him a Bad Man? It's an experimental indie rhythm puzzle adventure comprised of a series of minigames that take the language and tropes that gamers are familiar with and turns them on their heads to make dark social satire. It's a game about survival, sex, and the coercive systems of poverty in the U.S. The minigame format was chosen specifically to function as a reflection of urgency as a component in coercion. It is a game where the mechanics are deeply tied with its themes. The game art alternates between a sexy anime visual novel and crisp pixel art like WarioWare callbacks. Also, the game is available as a free download on Steam. Okay, that was a lot. That was a lot, right? And so some of this stuff is what intrigued me. I'm like, okay, I like visual novels. This kind of calls back to some of the games we talked about earlier in the podcast. And in fact, it escapes me at the moment, but there was a game that we talked about here on the show earlier. It was when Corey, the original co-host of the show, Corey Motley, was on. It was me, Corey, and then my wife, Gina Galloway, came on, and we did like a 3-person podcast. It was one of those like pickup artist games where it was about how a woman goes to a bar and then she has to like defend herself from like all these assholes who are trying to pick up on her. We had a 3-person discussion, which I think, oh man, I'm so mad that I can't remember what the name of the game is. But if you're a frequent listener, I'm sure you know the episode I'm talking about. I could probably even try to find it. But if you want to know what that episode is, like hit me up and I'll try to dig it up, or I'll ask the wife, maybe she remembers. But it was a really great discussion because it really talked about how power dynamics and sexual dynamics come into play. And I was really proud of it because we discussed how I approached the game as a straight cis male. Corey, gay, how he approached this as a gay male, and how my wife, a straight cis female, approached the content. And we all had like wildly different takes on the material, what we would do in these situations, how we would handle these assholes who were trying to pick up on us as if we were women in a bar. It was just a fucking great discussion. One of my favorite episodes we've ever done, which is a shame because I can't remember which number it is, but I'll find it. But regardless, I am interested in stuff like that. Definitely a feminist for sure. Believe in equality and equal rights for men and women and any sexual related cause. I'm definitely on the left pro feminist side of things. So this description of the game caught my attention, right? So I thought that was pretty cool. Now I did play through Would You Call Him a Bad Man? Now one of the first most interesting things about this game, it's literally like 4 minutes long. And when I read that, I was like, what? 4 minutes, man? Okay. And yeah, not kidding. So basically what happens is there's a song that's being played and it's a cool song. And the song is called Would You Call Him a Bad Man? I don't know who's playing. I'm assuming it's Ian Hinden who's playing. I mean, I don't know who it is, but cool song. So thumbs up on that. And as you're watching this song, it's basically kind of like watching a music video where images and scenes flash up and then you kind of like have to absorb what's going on and just kind of make sense of it. There are like a bunch of mini games, and I will say on my first playthrough, half the time a mini game came up and I was like, I don't even know what's happening. What am I pushing? What's going on? And I didn't understand because they're so small. Like it's like, for example, something will pop up and it'll say stab him in the heart, and then all of a sudden you're seeing an interface you haven't seen before where there's a picture of a guy's chest and there's like an arm with a knife on the right side of the screen. You have to figure out how to move the knife over real quickly, and it counts down like 3, 2, 1, and wherever the arm is when it gets to 1 is where it stabs. I think I got basically an F on every single section of the game. It uses WASD, which I am not good with because you know me, I'm a controller console guy to the core. But it's like a music video. And it's over like literally in the same amount of time that a music video would go. And I kind of followed along like the large beats. I'm not going to say that I understood every bit of it. I should probably play through it like 10 more times. But it was cool. Like it was very cool and it was provocative. I feel like a little bit of my face melted off and I like the music. So reading the description from Ian Hinden, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like I don't know that I would have said those things as I played the game, but now that I have read this description and played the game, I'm like, okay, I can kind of see how that was coming together. I think I messed up some of the mini games. I think I would have had a different outcome if I'd gotten a better score in the mini games. When you finish the game, it says there's like secrets to discover. I don't know how you discover those, but maybe those have something to do with like how the game plays out. So it's like a really interesting kind of art house project. I was shocked by it. I think it was stunned. I think stunned is probably a better word, where it's just like sights and sounds and flashing images. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And like, it's anime and there's a guy that's a pig and there's stabbing and there's drugs and there's sex. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I don't know. But it was the thing, man. And I think it was pretty cool. I definitely had like reactions to it, and I'm definitely thinking about it. So if nothing else, it's absolutely worth the time to go over and check it out. It's called, again, Would You Call Him a Bad Man? It's on Steam. It's free. It's fucking free. Like, what else do you want? Go play it for like 4 minutes and just melt your face off, see this thing and see what Ian Hinnen's shooting for. I mean, it's pretty cool. I have not fully digested it. I'm not going to say that I fully understand it, but I think I liked it. I'm pretty sure I liked it. I'll have to go back and play it again, but absolutely one of the most interesting things I've played all year. That is a fact for sure. All right, next game up is Akimbot. This is a platformer, 3D platformer, which has really strong like 90s vibes. Very Jack and Daxter vibes. Very, very early Ratchet and Clank vibes. Maybe like, I don't know that no, I don't think I want to say Crash Bandicoot because it's not like that pacey, not that accurate. I think probably Jack and Daxter is probably closest. If you've ever played that, if you haven't played it, no worries. This game, Akimbot, feels like it could have come out in the 90s or early 2000s, where you have a character, you're in a world. The world is kind of like on a track, but it looks like it's not on a track. You play a robot named Exe, like EXE, and he is with a robot buddy who's kind of like a drone. And the two of you are escaping from jail. You're in a spaceship, you crash, you get out, and then you're set free. And then you basically like run forward and you get ultimately, I think, 4 guns total. Shotgun, sniper, something, I forget what. But you walk forward and you meet little combat scenarios where robots are there and they try to attack you or they try to shoot you. And you jump a little bit. There's some platforming, pretty light duty platforming. It's not really super specific. It's not really super taxing. It's kind of just more of a thing to do between the combat scenes. Although the combat itself is not really that in-depth either. The whole game overall feels pretty basic. Like if this had come out in like the late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, I think it would have gotten quite a lot of play just because there wasn't a lot of competition at that time. It would have been pretty revolutionary back then. But now it feels old. It feels limited. It feels dated. I will say first off, the graphics are just like, okay, like it's basic graphics. It seems like a pretty small team, which is fine. I'm not really knocking it for the graphics, but just, don't expect a lot of polish, which is tough because I feel like the genre has really pushed forward a lot. I mean, we just saw Astrobot, which is like a knockout. The last Ratchet and Clank game, I mean, Melted Eyeballs. I mean, it was like, the genre kind of banks on having a lot of flash these days. So if you don't have a lot of flash, you got to really have some substance. And this game, unfortunately, doesn't really have either. I feel like the writing really drove me up the wall. It feels edgy in a shitty way, like we would have expected from the late 90s, where people had tood, and the two characters are just like constantly grousing at each other, and I just did not like it. I especially did not like the main character Exe. He just had the shitty attitude, and he was just like negative all the time, and I just like was like, dude, get out of here. Like I don't need this kind of stuff. It was really abrasive. It really wore on me, and I did not want him to ever say anything. It's a time and a place and a vibe that has passed, and going back to it after all these years feels really unwelcome and weird. The combat is not great. Something I did not like about it is like you have a melee attack, you have a jump attack thing, you have like a dive and you crash the ground, you got some guns and stuff, but none of the enemies really get stunned when you punch them or shoot them, so it doesn't really feel like you're having an impact. Like if you can get a hit in on a guy quick, it doesn't matter because he's going to still attack you anyway. There's no really stuns to give yourself some breathing room. And I think if you're going to have a game like this, like one of the basic building blocks of a 3D platformer like this is you have to be able to attack enemies without fear of damage. And I felt like I was always taking damage I shouldn't be taking. I would get hit in early, it wouldn't matter. I would shoot somebody, wouldn't matter. There's not enough cover, or like I just, can't dodge enough. You don't have enough options. I was taking a lot of damage that I didn't want to take, especially the melee, which I did not think felt very good. So overall, it's pretty just super basic graphics, terrible story, really abrasive, basic platforming, really basic combat. And I mean, honestly, like if you take a look at any of the 3D platformers that are coming out today, this game doesn't measure up in any way. It feels very old. It feels very behind the times. It feels like it has not learned any lessons from a lot of the luminaries that have come before it. I don't know how long this game was in development. Maybe it's from a while ago or something, but like you gotta like at least start where the other people are starting. And even if you're not going to go as far, you can't start behind, you know what I'm saying? Like at least you all have the same basic understanding of like how the combat works and how gunplay should work. And there's loads of examples out there. I mean, like there's tons of really great 3D platformers that you could kind of crib from. So I think Akimbot doesn't really ever get started. It feels like it's old. It's maybe 15 years out of date. Irritating. Doesn't really bring anything to the table, and it doesn't really do what it does very well. So I hate to be so negative, but it's just a kind of a man, just not a great experience in any aspect whatsoever. I was hoping for a little bit more, at least a little bit of fun run and gun, but it just does not deliver, and I cannot recommend it, considering how many other games out there kind of mine the same territory, just do it better. So there you go. That's Akimbot. Thumbs down on that one. Next up is Evotinction. That is quite a name. Evotinction, evolution and extinction is kind of what I guess. It's a portmanteau of that, I suppose. I don't know. That's a bad name. Don't like that name very much. But the game is actually better than you would think from the name. It's a pretty solid debut from a new studio. And the premise is that you are a scientist who has gone to work at like a think tank, like a super high-tech think tank. I believe they're underground, if I'm not mistaken. Something goes wrong, and all the security just goes haywire. So you get knocked out, something happens to you, and when you come to, the other scientists have been captured, they're somewhere else, and you are like basically alone in this underground facility. You have a suit, which gives you certain powers. You also have like an onboard AI, which helps you out. And then you've got certain abilities. I hesitate to say combat abilities. You've got basically like stealth and sneaking abilities. And this game is all about stealth. It's 100% stealth. So if you're not a customer for stealth, stay far away from this one, because it's all about the stealth. But I think what it does is pretty good. It's interesting because I think the story is an interesting premise. And when you get into the gameplay, there's just like tons of like robot drones all over the place. And in fact, I think the closest thing that I can probably compare it to is it feels a little bit like Metal Gear Solid VR missions in a way, which is interesting because you're in these levels. They're not VR levels, but they kind of feel like kind of artificially like hallway, boxes here and there, stuff to hide behind. It feels like it's made for stealthing. So I guess in one way, it should be made for stealthing. That makes sense, of course. But like, it feels a little wee bit artificial in that sense. So it feels like they have kind of come up with these levels to give you lots of places to effectively stealth in. You have all these little balls that are all over the place. I think they're called genies, I'm pretty sure. They're like little orbs that have eyeballs on one side of them. They're mechanical, and they fly around and they hover. They're like security drones, and they go haywire. So you have to stay out of the view of the genies. You always want to like sneak up on them. If you get behind them, you can scan them. They all have a barcode on the back, which denotes which genie they are. And if you can find the barcode, you can instantly deactivate them because you've got like a database that's in your onboard AI or something. You can also sneak up close to them. And if you sneak up close enough, you can stun them if you don't have the time or the bandwidth to scan their UPC code. There's other things you can do. Remote hacking. You can turn them off. You can make them blind for a while. You can make them stop moving. You can do all sorts of stuff. And there's other upgrades and stuff as well. I did not finish the game, just full disclosure. I played it just for like a day basically. But I got the vibe, and I think it's pretty good. The movement feels pretty good. I think the graphics are pretty nice. I think the concept is good. If you really like stealth, this is like a really great stealth exercise where you can just jump in and flex your muscles about sneaking around behind things, taking shots at things from a distance, kind of like planning out your routes, being careful, observing your environment and stuff like that. I think overall it's pretty cool. I like it. I like it a lot. Although I will say I am not the world's biggest like pure stealth fan. So I don't think that game is necessarily for me. I don't think I'm probably going to roll credits on it, but I appreciate what they're doing. I think it's pretty well put together. It looks nice. It's pretty clear about what it does. I think the only thing that kind of gave me pause about it was they definitely lean into like the performance aspect of it, where you can finish level, and every time you finish a level, it's almost like you're transitioning between areas, and it'll say like, oh, here's I think it's like a leaderboard or something, or there's some kind of like rating you get, and you can go back and do those levels again in a quote unquote simulator to improve your score. And in fact, you have to get certain upgraded materials. Like they want you to go back and like redo some of these levels to like do better. That part, not too crazy about. I'm not a big fan of like doing like improving my time or improving my score. I'm more of like a story narrative based guy. So like once I'm through a level, I'm like, okay, cool, I did that, and I don't really want to go back. But that's me personally. I know a lot of people really like the Metal Gear Solid VR stuff. And if you like that VR stuff, this is kind of that same vibe where you just go back, you try to improve your run, you try to do better with new tools that you've got. And so it's just a really cool stealth package. I don't really see a lot of things like that these days. And I think it's just, it's pretty charming. Again, not my personal flavor, not my jam, but I bet if you are a stealth fan, you probably will find a lot to like here. It's a pretty juicy little package if you swing that way. So I kind of a thumbs up to Evotinction. Silly name, don't like the name, but overall, pretty good stealth. I kind of dig it. All right, last game of the show. Through the magic of podcasting, it's no time at all for you, but this is actually the next day for me. I got super busy and things popped up, so I had to put the whole thing on pause. I meant to get it out yesterday, and you're not even going to be able to tell because you're listening to the show literally right now, but for me, it's like a whole other day, so I'm Got to get back in gear. Only one more game to cover, and then I'll get the show out the door. Oh, last game is Keylocker. This is an RPG, kind of an isometric viewpoint, pixel-based, strong, vibrant colors, really wild pixel style. If you look at the graphics, it's probably, I mean, obviously, the graphics are the first thing that grab anybody because you need to like look at the game first. But when you see it, it definitely has its own style. It looks very distinct from other things we've seen this year. So like lots of like magenta and like electric type colors, really kind of a cool pixel style. So I like the art. I think the art is really cool. This game is about, well, I'm not 100% sure what it's about, but basically you play a girl named Bobo, and she is a singer or a musician of some type. I know she has a guitar. You're on Saturn, but like, I don't know, alternate Saturn, where there's like a cybernetic online something civilization that also seems like a religion as well. It's all pretty vague. Like when you start the game, you're in prison and things just happen, and there's not a lot of backstory, not a lot of setup. You have to kind of figure it out as you go, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. For me, I felt like I needed a little bit more information. It didn't quite set the stage for me properly. So you get out of your jail cell pretty quickly, and then you just launch into like battle, turn-based battles, but they're the active type, kind of like the Mario and Luigi series that are on Switch, where you get into kind of a turn-based battle, but there's also the element of timing. That happens a lot in Keylocker. In fact, I think like basically every single thing you do has some kind of a real-time component to it, where if you're attacking, you try to hit a button to do more damage. If you're defending, if you hit the button on time, like you usually dodge like 100%. And if you don't hit the button, then of course you take some damage. I had a problem with this because I felt like the timing was off. I mean, I am not the most rhythmic person on earth, but I feel like I can usually do QTEs or stuff like that pretty well, at least the first couple of times that I get the hang of it. But I kind of struggled with these. It felt like the timing was a little bit off to me. Like you almost had to push the button before, like you had to like anticipate it happening to be like split second, which didn't quite work for me. Maybe other people will have less trouble with it. But I felt like you got off to like a really like kind of a rough start. You're picking a character class and you don't really know much about the character classes. And then you're in the game, you're just wandering around. The environments are pretty busy looking, and I found it difficult to figure out like what was something I should investigate or not. There's like some things you could interact with, some things you couldn't, and they weren't like really distinct. They weren't sticking out to me. So that was kind of a visual aspect I wasn't too thrilled with. Battles, again, like with the real-time stuff, I thought was kind of was tough. And I just felt like I just was really being kind of kept at a distance for this one. It's one of those indie games where I feel like they really want you to work for it to get into the game. And I just was like, I need a little bit more from this. I think also there's probably a certain type of player who's going to really like eat this up. I mean, I can imagine some of my friends who like a certain type of game will be like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is indie gold. And I'm sure it appeals to other people, but for me, it just, the whole thing felt kind of, I don't know, spiky in a way, if that makes any sense. I just felt like between the lack of understanding about the story and the lack of tutorialization and the quick time events not really meshing with me, I kind of bounced off it pretty quickly. It became a pretty, I don't know, unfriendly like experience. And I think I was just in the mood for something that was just a little bit more easygoing. So I did not spend a lot of time on Keylocker. I kind of bounced off it. I do not think I will be back, but I would strongly recommend it to people who like indie type RPGs. If you want something that's kind of got its own lingo going, its own like little universe. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff here. I just don't think it's my jam, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I just think it's not the right vibe for me, but I could easily see this becoming an indie favorite. With its story about, you know, pushing back against the man, reclaiming Saturn, using music and musical instruments to kind of fight back. So I think there's something here, just not something for me, if that makes any sense. So Keylocker, not a good fit, but I bet somebody out there is going to love it. All right, folks, the game portion of the show is now officially over, but I do have a couple of non-game things to mention this week, usually movie TV. That is the truth. And I will be doing that right now. If you may remember from a couple episodes back, I started watching Moonlighting, the TV series from the 80s. I watched it as a kid, and I remember really liking it, starring Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd, Curtis Armstrong, Elise Beasley, a couple other people back in the day. And, you know, it's a story of two detectives. One is a guy, he's kind of offbeat and kind of a, I don't know, womanizer. The woman is a former model. She's kind of a little bit more uptight, and they kind of like each other, but they kind of don't. And, you know, it's one of the original, like, will they, won't they sort of like romance stories on network TV. It was really big, and it kind of set the tone for a lot of things that came after it. So finally watched the entire series. It ran for like they say 5 seasons, but it's more like 4.5 because they got canceled about halfway through the season. And I have to say, man, I'm really glad that I watched it all the way through. So I guess for context, Bruce Willis got really big after this, or like during the filming of this. So like when his movie career launched, he was, I think, still in the middle of Moonlighting. That was part of it that contributed to it. But this is the show, if not the show, one of the shows, but I'm pretty sure this is the show that kind of started the rumor where if you have a TV show and your leads do the deed, that no one will be interested in the show anymore. Like there's this kind of myth that viewers only want to see the romantic tension. They don't want to see, you know, like the consummation or the relationship that can build after people have sex on TV. False. Super false. As I watch this show, I'm like, wow, that's not at all what happened. That is not what killed this show, even remotely. You know, kind of the same thing with Cheers. If anybody's familiar with Cheers, one of the biggest comedies of the 80s, they said the same thing about Cheers, where the lead in that show, played by Ted Danson, and the other lead, Shelley Long, Sam and Diane, one of the other famous TV romances. You know, people said that after Sam and Diane had sex, the show tanked. I mean, number one, bullshit. It ran for like 11 seasons, and they had sex like in the 6th episode of season 1. So if you call going for 10 more seasons tanking, then I mean, I guess that seems like a pretty weird definition of tanking. But no, that's not what happened at all. And I think watching Moonlighting now, it really disproves that concept. I really think that's not what happened. What ended up happening with Moonlighting was, I mean, a lot of things. There's been a lot of articles written about it. But from my recent viewing, I think part of it was apparently that Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis didn't really get along that well. I think they both were big stars at the time, and maybe, you know, big star ego clashing, or maybe they just were personality clash. Who knows? But I mean, that was part of it. I think also the people who were running the show, from what I've read about it, they didn't have a lot of TV experience, and they were kind of making mini movies rather than making TV episodes. And so they had a lot of problems with production. They were always late with their episodes. It became like a running joke, and it was such a joke that like they would talk about it in the show. They would like break the fourth wall and say, oh, hey, we're back. I know it's been 6 weeks, but here's a new episode. Sorry about that. And, you know, they would say stuff like that. That is really jarring as you're watching it. But it was such a thing back then that they had to call it out. And it's interesting because this show was from a different time period, right? The 80s, so like 40 years ago, where that was like destination TV. You know, at the time, it was, I believe, the number one show in America. And like people were talking about it at work and around the water cooler, and people would like drop what they were doing to make sure they were home in time to catch it. And, you know, because you couldn't download it, couldn't stream it or whatever at different times. And so it was this huge, huge thing. And it was interesting to see how maybe the success was a problem. I know the writers, I would bet any amount of money that half the writing team was on cocaine at any one time, because a lot of the stuff was brilliant, but like some of the stuff they did just seemed so out of left field. And I bet they had problems getting it together because they were all high on cocaine because they were so successful and they were probably partying and stuff. But beyond that, it was like the writers, I would assume, are pretty troubled because you see it coming through in how they wrote or failed to write the relationship between the two leads. When they're doing the courtship romance thing, I mean, that came through pretty well. Kind of contentious, kind of hot and cold, but it kind of came through and it was pretty electrifying. But once they had sex and they had to build a relationship, the writers had no fucking idea what to do. And I think that was probably a reflection of probably in real life, these guys had no idea what to do. They probably didn't have relationships, or they probably had terrible relationships. And it showed. You know, you got to be able to write something that you know. And I don't think these writers knew what they were doing. In addition to that, I think the biggest problem, like the number one thing I think that sunk the show, is that Sybil Shepherd got pregnant about, I think in the 3rd season or something like that. And rather than simply ignore it, because she was like actually pregnant with who her partner was at the time, literally was, you know, physically pregnant. They could have made a joke of it, because this show made lots of jokes. They did a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, a lot of, you know, really, really sly stuff. They could have had her standing behind potted plants, carrying big boxes, wearing an overcoat. Like, they could have made a joke about it. She could have had the baby and they could have moved on with the series. But for some fucking reason, the writers decided to write it into the script. And that was, like, I think what sunk them. If they didn't know relationships, they sure as shit didn't know about babies. And they didn't know how to handle that. It like, everything in the show got really weird and bizarre and uncomfortable and just awkward. And it just, the writing got really, really, really bad at that point. Lots of crazy decisions being made. And the worst part, I mean, I don't think this is much of a spoiler for a show that's like 40 years old, but They decided to write the baby out of the show. I'm not going to say anything more about that, but they decided to remove the baby from the show in what must be one of the most catastrophically wrong-headed episodes I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I was in awe at how they decided to resolve the baby issue. I was beside myself. I was watching my wife the whole time going, can you believe they're doing this? Can you believe this is happening? Am I dreaming? Is this real? I just could not believe it. It was insane. It was insane. So I don't think that them sleeping together was what sunk the show. They had a lot of problems. So if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Moonlighting, you're probably like, Brad, why the fuck are we hearing about this? Why are you talking about this? Well, I'll tell you why. Because when that show worked, it was fucking just amazing, magical, electrifying. It was stunning. Like, there are so many fucking just like, holy shit, I can't believe I just watched that episodes of just like the performances are like searing, and like the stuff that happens is crazy. It's like off the wall, like breaking the rules of television. They were doing all sorts of crazy things. This is probably cocaine talking again, where they're just like, they're doing things I've never seen. Like they broke into a musical. One of the episodes was like a musical, full on scored like dance numbers, routines, songs, everything. They did a black and white. They did a Shakespeare episode. I mean, they did all these things. They talked to the fourth wall, slapstick comedy, screwball comedy. They did all these things that like other shows at the time were not doing. And Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis, when they weren't, I guess, disliking each other, they're fucking incredible together. Like, just watching them on screen in the good episodes, it's like, God damn, this is like, even today, 40 years later, I'm just like, Jesus, this is so good. Like, I love, like, the best episodes of Moonlighting are like nothing else. So I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I saw it all the way through. I'm glad I got to see the saga. And I'm just really sad, I think, ultimately, because there was so much potential there. And you see it so many times. There's like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, like just like amazing fucking episodes that you could probably teach a class on. And a lot of stuff where you feel like, boy, they really lost their way. But altogether, what an amazing journey. And I'm glad that I saw it, and it was great stuff. If you've never seen Moonlighting, definitely track down like an episode guide or something. Skip the bad ones, see a couple of the good ones. And it's just, you'll see. I think anybody who likes TV will see what was good about this show. And I think it really holds up even 40 years later. Fucking amazing fucking stuff. But also kind of an amazing flame out. In terms of movies, the wife and I just watched a film. Well, okay, we watched part of a film called Till Death Do Us Part. It looked like a fun one. We were kind of watching trailers. It's about a bride who leaves her groom at the altar, and then what happens is the groom and his 7 friends come to kill her in a cabin, which seems like wild. We're like, okay, we're in the mood for a horror comedy or, slasher comedy, whatever. Let's see what's going on. We watched this movie, and it was fucking awful. We watched about maybe half an hour of it before we bounced. It was just so terrible. And I'll tell you, this is one of those movies which is happening more and more to me these days, where I feel like, did AI write this? I know that people are credited, and I'm sure that, a human person had an idea. Maybe they went to ChatGPT, put their idea and said, hey man, will you please write me a script for a movie that's 2 hours with these points? And ChatGPT's like, beep, 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 boop, here you go. And I swear to God, it was like, I didn't understand what was happening. We thought at first that maybe this was a foreign film and the translation was just really bad. But no, it was written by like 2 guys. I think they're like, one guy was like from Kentucky and the other guy was from Georgia or some shit. So like, they're Americans. They're not from like, some other country where they don't write in English. And I just could not get over how bad it was. And I would bet any amount of money it was an AI generated script based on a person feeding stuff into it and then kind of tweaking it when it came out. We've had this experience a couple other times where like the writing is so incredibly bad. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, it's almost like no one's checking to see that one scene flows into another. They're not making sure that the overall arching story is cohesive and makes sense. It's really weird. And I bet we're just going to see more and more of this as people can just like get scripts generated, even if they have no script writing talent, even if they've never written a movie before, even if they're not a good writer, anybody can have a script in their hand within like, 30 seconds or something. So I think we're going to be seeing more and more of this. And I would bet any amount of money this was an AI generated script. If you want to see what I'm talking about, check it out. I think it's on Hulu or something like that. Oh, it's god awful. It's fucking terrible. In terms of movies that are not terrible, we just watched Mimic, the original Mimic from 90-something, 93, 92, directed by Guillermo del Toro, which is one of my favorite movie directors. Now, this one was had a little bit of contentious history. Came out, it's a movie about, I don't know if I should, I guess it's not much of a spoiler. Basically, there's like these killer cockroaches that are in a city, and they mimic human beings. And so it's a pretty cool idea. Mira Sorvino is the biggest star in this movie, and it was produced by Miramax. Now, if you know anything about Miramax, this was the movie house run by the Weinstein brothers, and Harvey Weinstein, I'm sure you're familiar with, is a giant piece of shit. He used and abused and ran roughshod over many, many women in Hollywood. I mean, he was notorious for it, and he's in jail for it. Did he die? He might have died. I hope he died, because he's a piece of shit. But anyway, I saw Mimic in the past, and then I heard that there was a director's cut, because basically Del Toro disowned the film. He said that the Weinsteins were constantly showing up on set. They were making decisions, making changes. They were ordering cuts, and they just fucked with his movie. And so he decided to like disown the whole film. But something happened at some point, and he came back to it. I mean, they must have gave him like a giant suitcase full of cash, because he made a director's cut. And it's interesting because right before we watched the director's cut, we watched about half of the first Mimic just to kind of get a taste of it. And then we watched the director's cut, and it was like, whoa, dude, it was like super different. Even from the first scene, like the cuts were different. The scenes were in a different order. And it really goes to show how you cut a film makes oh man, it can make a world of difference. So for example, in the very beginning, it kind of starts in media res, and the audience has to catch up. But in Del Toro's version, he lays it out clearly from the start, so you know what's going on. There's also a best friend in the film. In the Weinstein version, she looks like a really mentally unbalanced person who seems kind of like a ditz and like she needs help. In the Del Toro version, she's like a lab assistant, and she's super competent, and she's like dependable. It was like night and day. Just cutting a few scenes and cutting a few lines completely changed her character like 100%. Also, there was some other scenes where they were cut to, in the Weinstein version, they were kind of whitewashing a slavery ring that was happening in the film. And in Del Toro's version, they totally said, oh, this is like a slavery ring and this is what's going on. And I'm not sure exactly why they cleaned it up, but like there were a number of really distinct differences where you could see the hand of the person behind it. So the Weinsteins liked certain things. They liked their women dumb. They didn't want to talk about crime. They wanted to talk about these other things. They made a couple gross jokes about like sex and stuff. And then in the Del Toro version, that stuff was all gone. Like it was completely different. And it's so fascinating to compare those two things. I definitely think Del Toro's version, of course, is the better version. And it's a fun movie in general. I think having killer cockroaches who kind of look like humans is a fun thing. And it's just a good 90s, really solid 90s film, just all the way around. So I definitely recommend it. If you're up for like a little movie making adventure, watch the first one, the Weinstein version first, and then watch the Del Toro version, and then see them back to back. It's a real fucking education, for real. If you don't have the time, then just watch the Del Toro version. I think that is absolutely, without a doubt, the only version to watch. After that, I watched Identity, starring John Cusack and Ray Liotta. I forget, I think this is like I want to say it's like an early 90s or something like that. Really interesting film. There's a big twist thing going on. I'm not going to reveal that. But basically, John Cusack plays an ex-cop who has an accident, and he ends up at a motel, dinky-ass motel on the side of the road. And it's a really stormy, rainy night, like giant torrential rainstorm. And then over the course of the night, a bunch of other people show up at the motel. Like there's like two people who just got married. There's a family with a little kid. There's a single lady. There's a cop transporting a prisoner, the guy that works at the motel who runs it, etc., etc. So over the course of the night, in this torrential rain, all these people gather at this motel, and then they start dying one by one. And so I feel I don't want to say anything else about it, because I feel like you gotta just go into it cold and just watch it. But very cool. I really liked it a lot. I had never seen it before. I heard about it, and I just think that the mystery came together really well. I think how it all linked up was really unique and different, and John Cusack gave a great performance. So did Ray Liotta, two greats from the 90s. So definitely a thumbs up big time on Identity. If you haven't seen it, don't read up anything about it. Just go into it and watch it. And it's like a tight 90, I believe. And it just was a really good film all the way from start to finish. Last thing I'm going to talk about before ending the show is a TV show. I got this one recommended to me from all of the wonderful people over in the Gaming the Wild Discord. Scavenger's Reign. Watching it on Netflix. I believe it's also on HBO. I believe it's also on basically everywhere, I think. It's a 12 episode, I guess, limited series. I'm not sure if they're going to do a second season, but all that's out right now is season 1, and it's just 12 episodes. Animated, and it's about a spaceship who is transporting materials through the cosmos. Something happens, and the people on the ship have to evacuate the ship. They end up crash landing in escape pods on this nearby planet, and the planet is just fucking bizarre, like crazy flora and fauna, weird rules of life that don't really make any sense to us. And we follow, I think, 3 groups of survivors. They're separated because the pods landed in like really different places. One person gets stuck up in a tree all by himself. 2 people end up landing almost exactly side by side next to each other, and they're kind of struggling with some stuff. And then another person lands near some farm area, and she's got a robot with her. And they each have to kind of make their way. And before long, I'm not going to spoil anything here, no spoilers, but before long, they all have to like relocate and kind of journey to kind of meet up at some point. And so the series, I'm only about halfway through right now. There's 12 episodes. I'm on episode 6, or actually episode 7 right now. And we're following these 3 groups through this crazy alien like biome, crazy life. Like it's kind of a very aggressive life cycle here. Like life is short and brutal. Lots of fungus going on all over the place. Crazy stuff happening. It is great. It is fantastic. I heard nothing but good things from the folks over at Gaming in the Wild. And man, every single one of them who recommended it was dead on target. Fantastic show. I think it's very adult. It's very, like, in a mature sense, not like sexy booby time, but just like, you know, it's really well written. It's really great sci-fi. And it doesn't matter that it's animated. It's a fantastic watch. Seeing each of these groups kind of deal with their own personal issues and also the environmental issues, the animal issues. It's just really, really fascinating. The art style is great. It's very clean animation. I like the colors. They're like slightly muted palette. And it reminds me a little bit of Mobius's art style. If you're familiar with Jean Giraud, who is also known as Mobius, who did a lot of heavy metal magazine back in the day. I mean, really like one of the most famous sci-fi artists of all time, I believe. If you know anything about sci-fi art, I'm sure you've heard of Mobius. And so it looks a lot like his style. Not exactly, it's not a carbon copy, but reminiscent in some of the simplicity of the line work and some of the colors. I think the color palettes are pretty similar. So I think it looks really amazing. And it's just fascinating to see these people walk through. Man, I'm loving it. I can't stop watching it. We've been watching 2 episodes a day, and I really just want to sit down and watch the whole fucking thing in a row. Great stuff. I don't want to spoil anything about it other than what I've already said, and I did not spoil anything. I don't want to say any more about it, but fucking great. I love it. Scavenger's Reign is the shit. Go check that out if you are so inclined. And that's going to do it for the show. Before the closing music here, I would love for all of you to leave reviews, share the show on social media, and most important of all, please recommend the show to your friends, because nothing beats good old word of mouth. And also, if you want to support this show, help keep it going, especially with the cost of running this podcast, you can do that over at patreon.com/the Videogames podcast. If you want to join the Discord, that is absolutely free of charge. As also, always, also, yes. Whew, you can tell my brain is leaking out my ear right now, folks. Give me your questions and your comments. I love questions and comments. Hit me up in the Videogames Discord, or email me, sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. It's my name, BradGallaway. All A's, no O's. And that's going to do it for episode 407. Thank you again for joining me here on the Video Games Podcast, and I'll see you next week.